Chapter 136, Difference in Position. Han Sha-o was flabbergasted when he saw the old man get to his feet and walk over. He hadn't discovered it when the old man was sitting, but when the old man drew himself up straight he immediately appeared extraordinarily awe-inspiring. His body was tall and fit and didn't appear old and clumsy in the slightest. Phoebe pinched Han Sha-o covertly, wanting him to hurry and apologize. Lawrence on the other side kept throwing glances at Han Sha-o, seeming to urge him into an apology to the old man. When he saw the old man walk over, Han Sha-o said with a rueful smile, "Your ears are truly sensitive, but I didn't say anything bad about you, just wanted to introduce a good companion to you in your old age." "Oh, now this is a bit interesting. I didn't think you'd be so kind-hearted." The old man walked over and flicked a glance at Han Sha-o, one that sent chills running through his heart. He then pointed at Phoebe and smiled. "Do you mean this beautiful lady? If it's her, I'd be very happy to." Hey. Han Sha-o was immediately gobsmacked by these words as Phoebe's face turned bright red. She flung a vicious glance at Han Sha-o, seeming to blame him for playing with fire. "No, this lady is noticeably unsuitable for your age. I was thinking that this old granny is more suitable for you." Han Sha-o felt that his aura was a bit blocked when he faced this old man. He opened his mouth and continued spouting off random nonsense in an effort to shake off that oppressing feeling. On the other side, Lawrence appeared a bit anxious and continued sending certain looks at Han Sha-o. However, he was still a bit too late as Han Sha-o spoke his mind. "Such a rude thing, lacking breeding and vision. In what way am I a good match for this old thing? Are you seeking death?" Valerie was exceedingly angry as she bawled out at Han Sha-o with a violent look. She also glared at the elder as well for good measure. "Little fellow, you must be joking. Although I'm not young, I'm noticeably younger than this madam. I think she'd be more suited for my late grandfather." When the elder heard Valerie also curse at him, he actually merrily riposted in the same manner. Although his age was advanced, his words made Valerie out to be completely worthless. Valerie was so incensed that smoke was almost rising from her 7 orifices. She immediately stared at the old man angrily and shouted, "Damn decrepit thing, how dare you say that about me?" A slap rang out as Lawrence suddenly made his move and flung a slap at the rich madam. He said with a cold face to Cameron off on the side, "Uncle Cameron, your friend is simply too rude. We don't welcome people like her. Please have her leave immediately." Cameron's face changed slightly as he couldn't quite understand why Lawrence would do so. The madam almost wanted to go on a rampage. She covered her mouth as a few traces of blood could be seen. It looked like Lawrence hadn't held back with this slap. Cameron began to subtly feel that something was amiss and was about to ask what Lawrence meant when Finance Minister Evie walked over from the distance. He immediately cried out with surprise when he came over and gave a bow. "Master Han, what brings you here?" Han Sha-o's heart jumped with surprise as he suddenly remembered Mr. Cameron's talk of Emily's identity earlier. The current head of the Betteridge family was called Han. As he thought of this and once again looked at the elder, he vaguely guessed at his identity. Cameron's face also changed as he shouted coldly at Valerie in a low voice, "Shut up!" He restrained Valerie, who'd been about to continue making a fuss. He then spoke fearfully to the elder, "My apologies, Master Han, we've been most impolite. I will take her away now and personally visit in a few days to offer my apologies." Valerie had finally recovered herself in this moment and her expression was filled with awe and fear as well. She stood there in a dumb haze, not sure of what to say. It was obvious that she was stunned by Han's identity. "No need, our Betteridge clan cannot accommodate such characters like you." Han on the other hand maintained his usual expression and cast a cold look at the two of them as he spoke faintly. Cameron's expression was still humble as he continued to express his apologies and kept tugging the dazed Valerie, quickly walking outside. He kept bowing and offering his apologies before he left until his figure vanished into the distance. In this world, even with all the many gold coins that merchants could earn, their status in society would never be on par with nobles such as Han, particularly when Han's clansmen were senior officials in the military. They wouldn't dare offend Han no matter what. "Little fellow, you've got some guts." Seeing that Han Sha-o still had the same expression on his face after Cameron had left with clear explanations from Lawrence and Evie, Han was a bit surprised to see that Han Sha-o didn't offer an apology or appear that frightened. He snorted softly at Han Sha-o. Actually, when he found out Han's identity, Han Sha-o was also a bit shocked. However, He hadn't said anything that was too offensive just now, so he wasn't that afraid of Han. When he heard Han's words, Han Shuo said with a conciliatory smile, "I was just joking with you earlier. I think you surely wouldn't mind with your magnanimity." Hey, I'm a very narrow-minded person. Everyone knows that. Han laughed idly and responded with something outside of Han Shuo's expectations. This made Han Shuo feel a bit taken aback as he stood there at a loss for appropriate words. Honored father, what are you guys standing here chatting about?" Emily had changed into a new set of clothes at this time and first flicked a glance at Han Shuo, then looking at Han in surprise. Emily had married Han's second son, but that unlucky fellow hadn't had time to consummate the marriage before Han had sent him onto the battlefield. He hadn't returned in the end and had left Emily a widow. Therefore, after Emily had become a Betteridge daughter-in-law, old Han kept reprimanding himself and felt that he owed something to his son and daughter-in-law. It was said that he dearly loved Emily and was even closer to her than his own son. "Nothing much, just that I've met an interesting little fellow. Let's go. I'll go dance with you." "I don't understand you at all. You used to never bring a date to these banquets but wanted to drag me along this time." "You'll be the death of me sooner or later," old Han first responded carelessly and then complained merrily as he walked towards the dance hall. Emily had wanted to speak more, but she could only quickly follow after old Han. When she left, however, Emily still raked Han Shuo with a subtle glance. Old Han's words seemed to subtly indicate something. He thought about it briefly and understood that it might have been because of him to make Emily change. He was quite touched internally. So she's Madame Emily. It should be my first time meeting her today, but why does her back look a bit familiar?" Lawrence looked in the direction that Emily had disappeared in and flicked a glance at Han Shuo, questioning in a low voice. Lawrence's words seemed to point at something, particularly that last glance at Han Shuo. This made Han Shuo feel that Lawrence seemed to have discovered something, but to Han Shuo his relationship with Phoebe was the fake one, and thus, he wasn't afraid of Lawrence telling Phoebe about his relationship with Emily. He felt that he was on firm ground at heart and wasn't panicked. "Little Phoebe, you didn't offend old Han, did you?" Finance Minister Evie looked at Phoebe and spoke with a bit of worry after Han and Emily had left. "Never mind Phoebe's matters. Hey, go back to whatever you were busy with and don't worry. I'll take care of things here." Lawrence stood by the side and suddenly spoke up. Evie seemed to listen very much to Lawrence as he nodded and didn't say much else after Lawrence had opened his mouth. He left with a slight smile. "Don't worry, Master Han isn't someone who confuses right from wrong. He won't make trouble for you, I can promise that." "The ball has already started. The two of you can go enjoy yourselves." Lawrence spoke with a small smile at Han Shuo and Phoebe after Evie had left. Understood, senior brother." Phoebe smiled and pulled on Han Shuo's arm, seeming to say randomly, "Come dance with me." Han Shuo started and said a bit frantically, "Forget it, I don't know how to dance, not at all." Phoebe started and hesitated. Just as she was about to give up, her eyebrow suddenly lifted and she said a bit mischievously, "No problem, I can teach you. It's really simple." "Forget it, I'm really stupid. It won't be good for me to embarrass you in front of everyone." Han Shuo shook his head and declined with a wry smile. Her slender white neck rising up, Phoebe said with a bit of a pout, "What did you promise me before?" "Don't try to change the subject." Phoebe wrapped her hands firmly around Han Shuo's arm after she'd spoken with no thought of whether or not Han Shuo had agreed. She tugged him in the direction of dance floor, not giving him the chance to decline. Chapter 137, Strange Happenings at the Ball. Han Shuo didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He was resigned as he allowed Phoebe to drag him over to the dance floor. When he reached the dance floor, he noticed that a few merchants and other nobles were holding on to the waists of their ladies and dancing gracefully in the center of the floor. Han Shuo stood dumbly in a corner after being led there by Phoebe, watching the others dance with narrowed eyes and praying that he wouldn't be too embarrassing later. "Here, place your arm around my waist." Phoebe's body twisted as she stood across from Han Shuo. Her slender jade hands rose as she placed one into Han Shuo's right hand, guiding Han Shuo's left hand to her waist with her right hand. When Phoebe's small hand landed in Han Shuo's large hand, Han Shuo's heart lurched slightly as it never had before. A smooth, warm and boneless small hand felt quite comfortable to the touch. Han Shuo couldn't help but squeeze her hand, which caused Phoebe's body to tremble all over, her cheeks reddening unknowingly. knowingly. She glared at Han Shao and said softly, "No monkey business allowed." When Han Shao's large hand landed on Phoebe's waist and the two of their bodies were flush against each other, they could smell the scent on each other and their breaths would even waft into each other's mouths and nose when they spoke. "Come, I'll lead you in dancing, just follow my rhythm." Phoebe was a bit scared to look directly at Han Shao as she lowered her head and said that. She took a deep breath and placing her empty hand on his shoulder and slowly walked towards the dance floor. Phoebe appeared to let go of her reservations with the elegant and wonderful music. She didn't continue looking down at the floor but stared soulfully at Han Shao with her beautiful eyes. She explained the main tenets of dancing to Han Shao in a low voice. With Han Shao's current intelligence and observation skills, he'd already grasped the main principles of dancing after a round of observation. When he listened to Phoebe's detailed explanations and was led forward by her, he immediately grasped the knack of dancing and slowly became familiar with dancing after his initial unfamiliarity. Phoebe was a sword master and thus, her strength, flexibility and agility was naturally extraordinary. After enduring the reforging from the magical yuan, all the various functions of Han Shao's body were even more outstanding than an ordinary person's. When their two bodies leaned close to each other and settled into the same rhythm, their dancing style was very much in sync and quite mesmerizing. Their bodies leveraged the fact that their hands were clasped together to move in incredibly harmony. Han Shao would understand what Phoebe meant when she sent a glance over and his footsteps would move with Phoebe's in moving slowly, quickly or turning. This kind of wondrous sensation caused ripples of odd emotion in both Phoebe and Han Shao's heart. When the song was over, both of them felt that they hadn't given full expression to their thoughts, so when the next song sounded, Phoebe pulled Han Shao into a dancing form again. Their strong accordance perfectly demonstrated another dance to perfection, and their handsome and beautiful forms attracted much attention from the many eyes within the dance floor. Just as he was feeling greatly content, Han Shao's eyes swept the area and suddenly noticed Emily dancing with old Han not too far away. A pair of eyes full of the light of jealousy were fixed intently on him. This made Han Shao's heart jump and flash a rueful smile at Emily from afar. When she saw that Han Shao had only just now noticed her gaze, Emily was a bit angry as she viciously rolled her eyes at Han Shao, telling him that she was truly jealous. There was really no way that Han Shao could explain anything at this moment and could only smile wryly at Emily in the distance. Several waiters appeared from 3 directions at this time. Their gazes were flitting back and forth and their steps light and slow as if trying to hide something. Han Shao hadn't paid them much attention at first, but his sensitive ears seemed to filter out the wondrous music and heard a very faint tinkling sound. This seemed to be the sound that jade and jewels would make after hitting metal. His thoughts racing slightly, Han Shao's expression tightened as he began to involuntarily closely observe the waiters who had just appeared. As everyone was mesmerized in romantic dance steps, the appearance of several waiters holding trays with wine glasses on them was a bit jarring. In addition, although the waiters' gazes were calm, they would involuntarily travel to old Han in the middle of the dance floor, with a cold light subtly appearing when their eyes landed on him. As Han Shao continued his observations, he noticed that the waiters were slowly converging on one area. He also judged that Emily's and old Han's footsteps would travel to where the waiters were in another few breaths. Han Shao vaguely felt uneasy as he noted the waiters' gazes. His mind racing now, Han Shao tilted his forehead forward and brought his lips up to Phoebe's ears. Lost in the dance, Phoebe suddenly sensed Han Shao's movements and her heart was thrown into disarray. The redness of her cheeks spread out to her nape. She moved her neck slightly to the left, seeming to want to put some distance between Han Shao's lips and her neck. She then quickly lifted her head and snuck a glance at Han Shao after moving her head like that, noticing that Han Shao had furrowed his brow. This made her heart panic even more. She hesitated a bit and seemed to decide on something, rolling her eyes at Han Shao inwardly. Her neck didn't continue to dodge and stayed there as she seemed to be waiting for something with reddened cheeks. Those waiters seemed to want to take action against old Han and Madame Emily. "I made a joke out of old Han just now earlier," Move there with me now and I'll go and repay him for his favor. Han Shao finally placed his lips next to Phoebe's ears and said softly. Her body had first trembled in anticipation. Phoebe's body had then changed from soft and pliable to quite stiff after Han Shao had spoken his words. A trace of disappointment flashed through her heart, after which she widened the distance between her and Han Shao to use her eyes to indicate that she understood. Looking at Phoebe's gaze, Han Shao knew that Phoebe had fully understood his intentions given how in sync he was with her. He nodded and didn't say much else, covertly changing their dance moves together. The two of them exchanged positions with another couple at an unknown moment and swiftly danced towards Old Han and Emily. To Han Shao, he wasn't doing so in order to pay back Old Han any sort of favor. He was doing so because Emily was there. Emily was dancing with Old Han, and when she saw Han Shao winking incessantly at her, she thought that Han Shao was feeling guilty and wanted to explain something. She glared huffily at Han Shao and turned her head to no longer look at him again, seeming to still be greatly angry. Seeing danger approach, Han Shao's heart became more and more calm. His gaze focused on the bodies of the waiters and mentally charted out their plan of action and timing. He measured it all up clearly and accurately calculated when they would make their move. When Emily and Old Han finally started moving towards a corner, Han Shao's large hand on Phoebe's waist suddenly abruptly exerted force and they took 2 quick steps towards Emily. At the same time, the gazes and demeanors of the waiters who waited for quite a while suddenly made a drastic change from their peaceful looks. A cold and severe presence emanated from their bodies. The waiter with the tray of wine glasses in his hand suddenly flung it forward, sending the tray and its contents flying towards Emily and Old Han. Their bodies moved at the same time as a dagger sparkling with cold light stabbed towards Old Han and Emily like lightning. Emily and Old Han had been dancing to the graceful music when their faces suddenly changed drastically, but when they reacted, the fatal attack was already close at hand. One dagger stabbed towards Emily as another 4 stabbed towards Old Han. The 5 assassins moved quickly and cleanly. It was obvious to see that they were old hats with lots of tough training under their belts. A sharp and severe whistling suddenly sounded, appearing all the more ear-piercing in the midst of the melodious music. The demon slayer red shot out of Han Shao's sleeve like lightning in accordance to his thoughts, aiming for the dagger, making straight for Emily. Han Shao and Phoebe had swiftly whirled to Old Han's side at this time and surged into the other 4 assassins, attacking Old Han before they'd had a chance to react. Having long since made their preparations, Han Shao and Phoebe acted to defend at the same time. Han Shao used a dwarf-forged dagger to block a hit. Phoebe's longsword twirled fiercely and strongly deflected 2 daggers into the sky. Making use of this opening, Han Shao shoved fiercely with his back and tried to push Old Han away from the danger zone. To his surprise, Old Han wasn't pushed out of the way after his strong shove. Old Han's upper body swayed slightly as he reached through the air to snatch out a flying tray. Old Han hauled it behind him and blocked the last dagger with a loud clang. The suddenly appearing Han Shao and Phoebe had blocked 3 of the daggers that had been for Old Han, completely throwing the assassins' plans into disarray. The 5 waiters looked at each other and didn't make another move. They retreated quickly towards the outside as screams and panic ensued on the dance floor, with everyone trying to flee and hide. Old Han and Phoebe both set their sights on different assassins and immediately ran off in pursuit. As the 2 of them were taking action, Han Shao quickly ran to Emily's side and grabbed her hand, saying lowly, "Are you all right?" "I'm fine, go after the assassins." Emily was a senior executive of the Dark Mantle. All right. She didn't display any panic and immediately admonished Han Shao lightly. "It's none of my business. It's good as long as you're all right. Everything else has nothing to do with me." Han Shao shook his head and picked up a wine glass from beside him at random, staying where he was, and slowly sipped at wine as he looked at Emily, having not the slightest intention to rise. You darned brat." The meaning behind Han Shao's words was obviously placing Emily's safety first and being too lazy to care about anything else. When Emily heard his words, she was both angry at Han Shao not listening to her and touched by his concern. She pouted and rebuked him. The dance floor was in complete chaos at this moment as the merchants reacted to the sudden developments. They were all fleeing in mass panic to the courtyard beyond the dance floor. No one was paying any attention to the conversation between Han Shao and Emily. Seeing that there were fewer and fewer people on the dance floor, Han Shao and Emily finally walked outside. A grave sharp sound sounded when they reached the door as the demon slayer edge threaded through the frantically fleeing crowd and suddenly landed in Han Shao's palm, vanishing without a trace in the blink of an eye. "The person who attacked you is dead," Han Shao said faintly to Emily when he put the demon slayer edge away. When the demon slayer edge had flown back just now, it had been flying close to the ground. The people panicking around it naturally hadn't noticed, but Emily had been walking with Han Shao and had seen the demon slayer's miraculous automatic flight with her own eyes. It had then concealed itself within Han Shao's sleeve, making Emily flabbergasted. "What's the weapon that you're using?" Emily's voice trembled as she looked in disbelief at Han Shao. The demon slayer edge that could fly according to his own will naturally appeared mysterious and unpredictable in this world. It was understandable that Emily was so shocked. Smiling mysteriously, Han Shao explained with a dashing air, "This has to do with the martial arts technique that I'm training. I'm not at liberty to explain. All you have to know is that my weapon is indeed a bit different." "You wicked brat, just how many secrets are hidden amongst yourself?" Strange lights danced in Emily's eyes as they focused on Han Shao, asking with extreme curiosity. Shrugging, Han Shao smiled without responding and gave off the air of unfathomable mysteriousness. This made Emily's teeth itch to throw all decorum to the winds and bite him where they stood. Just as Han Shao and Emily were conversing quietly, the chaotic scene slowly came under control as Phoebe, Old Han, a slightly frantic Finance Minister Evie, and Lawrence with a darkened expression returned from all directions. One made it out and the others committed suicide. There was nothing to be gleaned from their bodies. Phoebe first looked in surprise at Han Shao and Emily and spoke lowly to Han Shao when she returned. Han Shao and Emily had already put some distance between themselves before Phoebe and the others had returned, and their expressions had gone back to normal and didn't express anything special in particular. Therefore, although Phoebe was curious why Han Shao hadn't gone after the killers and stayed with Emily, she didn't ask anything. "Little fellow, thank you for your aid in saving me and Emily," Old Han said approvingly to Han Shao with a smile after he walked over. "Not at all. Treat it as me returning the favor after making a joke out of you earlier. Hey, this way, even if you really were narrow-minded, you likely wouldn't be able to find it within yourself to make trouble for me." Han Shao winded at Old Han and said teasingly. Old Han laughed heartily when these words were uttered. "Fascinating, what a fascinating little fellow." Chapter 138, "We can be together. I'm so sorry. It was because our defensive precautions weren't good enough that it caused you to be frightened." Finance Minister Evie spoke with a look of worry to Han. Waving his hands, Han's face was grave as he said seriously, "Don't apologize, Evie. I won't hold you responsible. Don't investigate this matter further. I'll handle it myself." Evie first heaved a sigh of relief when Han said so, and then asked askance why. "Honored father, since Grandpa Han has already spoken, don't think too much about it." Lawrence's face was a bit dark as he spoke to Evie. Lawrence, don't you worry either. I know who did this." Han flicked a glance at Lawrence and seemed to know something as he spoke. Lawrence nodded his head remotely and looked toward Han Shao and Phoebe. He hesitated for a moment, then asked Phoebe, "Did Cameron try to force you to join his organization's merchant alliance?" "Yes, but I've already turned him down," Phoebe responded. "Very good. Don't give in at any cost, otherwise your Boost Merchant Guild will face incredible danger." Lawrence, who contemplated silently, gave this piece of advice to Phoebe. Taking in their conversation, Han Shao made his observations. He seemed to notice something from Lawrence and Han's discussion, but since the two of them didn't talk about anything tangible, and so he didn't inquire further. As for the other matters, Han Shao wasn't that curious about them. Since this assassination attempt had taken place, it was difficult for the banquet to continue. Han Shao lazily stretched his waist and said to Phoebe, "I believe the banquet is already over. Can we leave now?" Rolling her eyes at Han Shao, Phoebe bowed slightly to Evie and Old Han. Then with a slight smile she said, "We still have matters to attend to, so we'll be taking our leave now." Evie couldn't very well keep them now that such a matter had occurred. He sighed and said lowly, "All right, be careful on your way back." Brian, remember what we said, I'll come find you tomorrow. Don't disappear for another few days now." When he saw that Phoebe and Han Sha-oh were about to leave, Lawrence suddenly reminded Han Sha-oh not to forget their arranged appointment. Han Sha-oh nodded in understanding. Just as he was about to leave, Han opened his mouth again. "So you're Brian? Hey, I'll remember you." Smiling and not responding, Han Sha-oh and Phoebe left the banquet along with some other merchants who were leaving in a hurry. Everyone boarded their carriages and traveled back along their original routes. "Just who wants to kill that?" told Han. "Even I know of Master Han's accomplishments for the Empire." Many of the current officers in the military are Master Han's former men. With his status, there shouldn't be that many within the Empire who dare make a move against him. Phoebe's beautiful eyebrows creased slightly after they entered the carriage, and she spoke with a distant voice. To remain vigilant, the 3 original demons had been deposited nearby and were continuously keeping an eye on the surroundings. When Phoebe had voiced her thoughts, Han Sha-oh thought briefly and said, "We helped Old Han today, but that may bring great trouble to us. But for your merchant guild, the advantages of having a good relationship with Old Han definitely outweigh its disadvantages. However, this matter doesn't have much to do with me, as I'm not afraid of anything. But you should be careful." Phoebe flashed her teeth in a smile. "Don't you worry, I know my limits." "Then I won't speak further. Can you now fully detail the items you promised me?" Han Sha-oh nodded and then drew himself up slightly, staring straight at Phoebe as he asked this question. Alright, just look at you. I found someone to professionally assess the wealth that you obtained from that unknown source. It's worth roughly 40,000 gold and can fully cover those random items you purchased. In addition, I've thoroughly prepared large amounts of rations for you. However, the space ring with the larger capacity that you want will take some time. There's temporarily no supply of that in the market." Phoebe's spirits hadn't been dampened with running into an attack on the banquet, as she spoke quite lightheartedly at this moment. When Phoebe spoke thus, Han Sha-oh finally breathed a sigh of relief in his heart and revealed a very gratified expression. He spoke with a laugh. "I'm at ease with you at the helm. Forget about the space ring, I've just gotten one with an even bigger storage space. When we arrive at the guild, you can take what you need. I've already taken the risk of gathering all of it earlier when I didn't know if you'd have enough gold coins to pay for it all. Be at ease, there won't be any troubles." Phoebe threw her head back proudly and said softly. Han Sha-oh was a bit touched by Phoebe's words. He knew that Phoebe had taken the risk to do so purely based on their friendship. Phoebe had even thought of paying for some of it herself. From this point alone, he could conclude that Phoebe was a friend worth having. Just as Han Sha-oh was feeling gratitude, Phoebe reached out and pinched Han Sha-oh's cheek while glaring at Han Sha-oh. "Also, you lied to me that you didn't know how to dance. You were so well practiced." "You're the worst." In all honesty, Han Sha-oh wouldn't have known how to dance if it wasn't for this time's banquet. He'd learned on the spot and muddled his way through. It was only because his brain had been developed so much that his ability to pick things up was incredible. This was why Phoebe had the misconception that Han Sha-oh was pretending that he didn't know how to dance. "I'm innocent. I really didn't know how to dance before you were a good teacher," Han Sha-oh complained with an aggrieved air. "Dude, you like dancing with me?" Phoebe suddenly lowered her head to ask softly, and she looked a bit bashful. Nodding, Han Sha-oh responded carelessly, "Yes, it feels rather nice." "Then I want you to promise me that you will dance with me again next time, or I won't help you with your matters in the future." Phoebe's face lit up as she spoke happily. Alright, I promise you. As long as you help me seriously, I'll promise you anything you want. I have no problem killing or setting fires for you, not to mention dancing." As there were plenty of annoying matters that he'd have to bother Phoebe with in the future, Han Sha-oh agreed without any hesitation. The two of them didn't run into any troubles along the way as they returned amidst happy chatter. When they arrived at the Boost Merchant Guild, Phoebe took out the materials that Han Sha-oh needed, including a few warehouses full of rations and daily necessities, almost filling up Han Sha-oh's current space ring. "Keep the other gold coins for me for now. In addition, these are the other materials that I need you to purchase. Please continue collecting them for me." The wood elite zombies and Yun demons all needed to be refined. Han Shao had therefore prepared another list and gave it to Phoebe after taking care of everything that needed his attention. Looking over the list that Han Shao handed over, Phoebe looked at Han Shao with surprise, saying, rations for hundreds of people and all sorts of bizarre materials. Just what are you planning on doing? Hey, nothing much. Just take care of it for me and I'll make up for the insufficient gold to you next time I visit. Han Shao didn't explain much as he uttered this sentence and left the Boost Merchant Guild, returning to the academy alone. When Han Shao returned to the Necromancy Major, it was already pitch black outside. The chilly wind of winter howled through the night and it was so bone-achingly cold that no one wanted to venture outside. However, there was a figure standing not too far outside the entrance to the dorms. It was so cold that the figure's small face was beet red as it continued to circle around a stone statue not too far away. What are you doing here? Han Shao couldn't help but ask when he saw that the figure was Lisa. I'm waiting for you. Lisa's eyes displayed happiness when she saw Han Shao appear, and she quickly walked toward Han Shao, speaking urgently. His brow furrowing, Han Shao took off the coat on his body and covered Lisa with it. He asked in bewilderment, why are you waiting here for me on such a cold night? Han Shao's movements made Lisa overjoyed, but she then spoke with a worried face, my mother is sick and so I need to make a trip home. I may not come back for a while, so I wanted to say goodbye to you. If it's just a goodbye, you can tell me tomorrow. Why must you wait for me in the middle of the night? Han Shao hesitated when he saw that Lisa was still shaking, then activated the mystical glacial spellfire. His right hand swayed slowly as waves of warmth came forth, warming Lisa's trembling body. You often disappear mysteriously. I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to see you because I'm leaving tomorrow, which is why I waited for you here. I didn't know if you'd come back, but in the end you did. Lisa breathed out softly in comfort when her body warmed up and then spoke softly to Han Shao. You don't have to go out of your way to come say goodbye to me. Han Shao felt that the atmosphere was a bit odd and was silent for a while before responding. Lisa remained silent for a while. Her gaze was fixed onto Han Shao. She suddenly said, Brian, you said that you like me. You're no longer a slave or an errand boy now. Come home with me, let's be together. Han Shao was greatly astonished by her words as he faced her, and he stood there dumbfounded. He didn't know what to say when he saw Lisa rigidly standing there with a solemn expression. Chapter 139, The Fate of the Original Demons. I have a buttload of things to do right now. I'm afraid I don't have time to spend with you. Han Shao thought for a moment and then responded to Lisa. With regards to Lisa, Han Shao had rather disliked her in the beginning, but with his later interactions with her he realized that Lisa wasn't a vile person. She was just a bit too naive. Particularly towards the end of their interactions, Lisa had protected him in many ways. This made it difficult for Han Shao to maintain his heart of revenge towards her like he had before. However, as much as he didn't dislike Lisa, he still didn't have any feelings from her. Therefore, when Lisa made her suggestion, Han Shao could only fob her off with a careless excuse. When Han Shao spoke thus, Lisa remained silent for a bit and then nodded. Alright, I'll return home tomorrow. I hope you'll be stronger the next time we meet. Lisa was noticeably distracted when she said this, and she smiled after her words concluded. She walked back to the girls' dormitory alone, her back shaking slightly as she did so. Shaking his head and sighing lightly, Han Shao only returned to his room when he saw Lisa disappear into the distance. When he arrived in front of the dorm, Han Shao had just pushed open the door when a longsword came stabbing towards his chest. His face changed drastically and he tried to back out of the doorway without even thinking about it. However, the sword's movement was like lightning, as it had already arrived at Han Shao's chest after the cold light had flashed. Han Shao's rapidly retreating body tilted sideways as he quickly fell to the side. PFFT, the longsword stabbed deeply into Han Shao's body through the ribs, injuring him in that instant. The ambusher then quickly retracted the longsword with ease. Although pain racked his body, Han Shao didn't make a sound as the demon slayer edge flew out from his right sleeve. It pierced through the door and stabbed directly directly towards his attacker. Dark green fighting aura suddenly exploded as the door turned into splinters. A figure with its face covered suddenly appeared in front of Han Sha-Oh with the accompaniment of metallic clashes. With Han Sha-Oh's current powers of vision, all concealment would basically be useless as long as he'd gotten a glimpse of a certain person once. Han Sha-Oh hadn't thought that Clark would be so scarily dogged. He'd retreated with all due haste when he hadn't discovered anything last night, but he laid and waited tonight to make a move against Han Sha-Oh. Because he'd felt a bit apologetic towards Lisa, Han Sha-Oh hadn't been on guard this late at night, and thus, he'd been less cautious. He hadn't thought that Clark would actually ambush him, and so had been injured when the ambush started. As an Earthrider, Clark's fighting aura should have been milky white. However, it looked like he finally understood that Han Sha-Oh wasn't an easy target after last night's failure and was being much more careful this time. These thoughts flashed through Han Sha-Oh's mind like lightning. Before the only partially hidden Clark sent another stroke his way, Han Sha-Oh looked at Clark as his legs suddenly exerted power and he madly retreated outside, crying out loudly, "Assassin!" Bam! Han Sha-Oh's back suddenly ran into a sturdy and chilly wall. When he turned back for a look, he discovered that there was only air behind him. His heart immediately tightened as he understood that Clark had come prepared this time. Han Sha-Oh had concentrated all his attention after Clark had appeared and could sense that there was no one else around. As an Earthrider, for Clark to have set up the water magic in the surroundings that was this sturdy ice wall meant that he must have used a costly magic scroll that didn't need magic as a catalyst. This was why he could release the sturdy ice wall in the surroundings, completely blocking off Han Sha-Oh's escape path and all sound from traveling. Indeed, the sturdy ice wall didn't break when his back hit it. Han Sha-Oh patently saw a jeering look flash through Clark's eyes, his entire face so muffled that only his eyes showed. Another ball of dark green fighting aura then flared out, forming the appearance of rolling waves, and churned towards Han Sha-Oh. His mind racing, the Demon Slayer edge that had just returned to his hand suddenly howled as magical yuan infused it. It danced with exceedingly hot flames to counter Clark's wave of fighting aura attack. It was a pity that Clark felt a strange power suddenly appear when he sensed the magical yuan infused Demon Slayer edge halfway through his attack. His eyes flashed and Han Sha-Oh discovered that the roiling fighting aura attack was dark green in the front yet milky white in the back. He didn't even need to think that Clark was afraid of failing when he sensed the unknown power. He finally exposed his hidden strength and fully displayed the ferocity of an Earthrider. Although his magical yuan was limitless in power, Han Sha-Oh had only been training it for a few months. He knew that it would be difficult for him to defend against this all-out attack. He weighed his options with extreme speed in his mind, and the three original demons circling Clark instantly melded into Clark's body and ate away at his essence with reckless abandon. The silent Clark immediately screamed hoarsely in agony when the original demons started eating away at him. The milky white fighting aura that he'd just released was partially pulled back into his body in an attempt to destroy the three rampaging original demons. Bam! Sounded out as Han Sha-Oh's magical yuan and Clark's fighting aura finally clashed. Han Sha-Oh staggered backwards, his mind a bit woozy. Suddenly 3 pricks of pain reflected in Han Sha-Oh's nerves and his somewhat foggy mind instantly cleared. He understood that this meant that the 3 original demons had already been destroyed in Clark's body. He focused his concentration and looked at Clark, noticing that Clark was looking at his body with panic as a strand of blood slowly seeped out from the corners of his mouth. Because of the 3 original demons eating away at his essence, Clark's body was surely injured as well now. Otherwise he wouldn't be looking at himself with such horrified eyes. After all, to the people of this world, having an unknown entity enter their body and devour their essence would be something that they would remember for the rest of their lives. The Demon Slayer edge, newly infused with magical yuan, carried with it a burning flaming momentum as it struck into the back of the sturdy ice wall with a howl. A sharp ping sounded as Han Sha-Oh charged towards the hallway with a look of joy. Just as Han Sha-Oh threw back his head and was about to cry for help, Clark suddenly jumped out Han Sha-Oh's window and quickly made his escape as he'd felt the boundary collapse. He looked a bit bedraggled. It looked like he knew that with the collapse of the boundary, the plan to kill Han Sha-Oh this time had failed, and thus, He immediately decided to retreat. Opening his mouth, Hansha-O didn't call out. Given that Clark had left, there was no point in him calling for help because of the sound isolation effect. Although there'd been an extremely harrowing fight in Hansha-O's dorm in the hallway, it hadn't wakened any of the other students. Hansha-O's heart still pounded in fright as he looked at the shattered door and walked in silently. The 3 painstakingly refined original demons had been destroyed by the fighting aura within Clark's body due to the need to contain him. However, it had been because of the effect of the 3 original demons that saved Hansha-O's life. Although the 3 had been destroyed, Clark's body had also been injured because his essence had been eaten away by the original demons. He'd have to rest for the immediate future, and it'd be tough to prepare a second attack. It's alright, the new will replace the old. It looks like I can begin refining an even higher level of the yin demons. When I make it to the true demon stage and bring forth the Elitewood zombie and yin demons, it'll be your death sentence in Clark, Hansha-O murmured to himself. The next day morning, Lawrence came looking for Hansha-O according to their agreement, and the two sat down in Hansha-O's room. Clark came by last night. I was almost unable to see you again. The door was still shattered and there were noticeable traces of a fight around it. Hansha-O didn't hide anything and spoke frankly to Lawrence. Giving a start of shock, Lawrence was astonished. So soon? Nodding, Hansha-O said again. Yes, I didn't think that would happen either. However, Clark's body has also been injured and I don't think he'll make another attempt anytime soon. You don't need to worry about anything. You harmed Clark? Lawrence looked at Hansha-O with disbelief as he asked in shock. Yes, but if you think that means my strength is greater than Clark's, you'd be dead wrong. I harmed him through a fluke, and if it wasn't for me evading in time, I would have definitely been killed by him. This person is really difficult to shake off. Hansha-O's face was grave as he spoke slowly. Even without Hansha-O's reminder, Lawrence knew of how thorny Clark was given his greater familiarity with the latter. Although Hansha-O didn't speak of how the battle unfolded last night, Lawrence could tell from his expressions that it must have been very heated indeed. No matter what methods he'd used, that Hansha-O could injure Clark meant that Hansha-O wasn't a simple man either. Thus, when he heard Hansha-O's words, Lawrence's opinion of Hansha-O raised another few notches. With my understanding of Clark, it will be difficult for us to find him now that he's injured. He must have returned to a safe place to rest and recover. Our plan to kill him can only be delayed. Lawrence thought briefly and spoke slowly. Alright, I happen to have to take care of some matters as well. Let's end matters here for today and I'll come find you after another 10 days. We'll chat then. Lawrence also nodded in agreement after Hansha-O spoke, then looked at him deeply before taking his leave. Hansha-O also proceeded cautiously to the mountains in the back, planning on starting the Earth Elite zombie first in the Cemetery of Death and then finishing the matter with the forest trolls. Chapter 140, Advancing to True Demon. After arriving at the Cemetery of Death, Hansha-O immediately placed all the materials needed to refine the Earth Elite zombie in the place of Extreme Earth. He was in no hurry to immediately take action, as he first refreshed the refining method for the Earth Elite zombie in his mind. He only started after he thoroughly considered the various steps in the procedures and places that he'd need to keep an eye out for. He first found the place in which the Earth Chi was thickest in the place of Extreme Earth. Hansha-O took out the Demon Slayer Edge and dug a hole, turning it into the place where he'd be putting the zombies. All sorts of materials landed exactly where they should be placed according to the setup of the formation. He coalesced all of his mental strength in his mind and went over everything clearly and cleanly. Hansha-O acted without hesitation and completed all preparations with extremely high efficiency. When a ball of oozing black dirt was embedded in a natural dip in the place of Extreme Earth, a small weak wind seemed to start blowing in this location of Extreme Earth. However, upon taking a close look, one would discover that it wasn't a weak breeze blowing, but that some gray-colored matter was slowly converging in the center of the pit from all sorts of directions in the place of Extreme Earth. The concentration of the essence of Earth Chi was an indicator that the formation was complete. Hansha-O broke out in a grin when he saw this situation take place, and then immediately used necromancy magic to summon zombie warriors. 3 zombie warriors suddenly appeared in front of Hansha-O. Theoretically speaking, any zombie warrior would have the chance to become an immensely powerful Earth Elite zombie with a particular preparation in the place of Extreme Earth. However, If the conditions of the main ingredient, the zombie warriors, was better all around, it would naturally have a greater chance of becoming an Earth elite zombie. Taking in a deep breath, Han Sha-Oh once again summoned 3 zombie warriors. When 6 zombie warriors appeared, Han Sha-Oh gave them the order to attack each other. He wasn't sure which zombie warrior was better, thus, the order for them to attack each other was the simplest and most effective method. His brow furrowed in concentration. Han Sha-Oh watched the struggle between the 6 zombie warriors with glittering eyes. He immediately ordered them to stop after a few minutes because his eyes had lit upon one of the zombie warriors with the bulkiest build. His battle strength seemed to be a bit stronger. If he allowed them to continue fighting, this zombie would undoubtedly be in tattered pieces afterwards. This would obviously impact the refinement of the Earth's zombie afterwards. All was in readiness now as Han Sha-Oh once again ran over everything that he needed to pay particular attention to in his mind. He cast his eye over everything in the place of extreme Earth with his astounding powers of observation. He gave the order to the zombie warrior after he was certain that he hadn't missed any details. The zombie warrior slowly shuffled into the pit in the place of extreme Earth. When the zombie entered the pit, its body was covered by the coalesced essence of Earth Chi. That great essence of Earth Chi slowly seeped into every drop of the zombie warrior's bone marrow according to a profound way of circulation. The zombie warrior was a bit uncomfortable in the beginning as his body shivered slightly. A while after all the Earth Chi essence had been absorbed, the zombie warrior appeared to enjoy things quite a bit. Smiling slightly, Han Sha-Oh suddenly waved his hand and all sorts of strange colored dirt suddenly landed within the pit, covering it in the span of an instant. The pit was also filled in by the strange dirt, but the essence of Earth Chi continued its slow collection and percolated through the dirt and continued drilling into the zombie warrior's body. Having done all that he needed to do, what Han Sha-Oh needed to do now was wait. He knew that the zombie warrior would only turn into a Earth elite zombie after all the Earth essence Chi in this place of extreme Earth had been fully absorbed by the zombie warrior. He wasn't sure how long the entire process would take either, but now that everything was proceeding according to plan, Han Sha-Oh felt that he had no reason to remain. Walking out of the cemetery of death, Han Sha-Oh continuously trained and practiced his magical yuan and magic along the way as he headed further south in the dark forest. It was indeed a bit inconvenient without the surveillance of the original demons along the way. It was a good thing that Han Sha-Oh's senses were extraordinary. He didn't run into any particular danger along the way. In the dead of the night, the snow-covered chilly dark forest seemed to be shrouded with a silver veil. Beneath the rays of the quiet moon, the entire dark forest was surrounded in a still and peaceful atmosphere. Han Sha-Oh sat cross-legged on top of a single towering tree with thick branches. His entire body trembled as thick viscous clouds of demonic power wreathed around Han Sha-Oh's body. The bright moonlight couldn't pierce through this layer of darkness at all. When the last of the divine brain fruit had been consumed by Han Sha-Oh and he'd suffered through the painful effects of the fruit, he was finally breaking through the molded spirit stage. As essence blood slowly gathered in his mind and abdomen, a baby demon slowly started forming, interspersed with magical power and Han Sha-Oh's thoughts. Clouds of demonic power traveled out from Han Sha-Oh's pores. The baby demon was a symbol of the true demon stage, indicating that Han Sha-Oh had broken through the molded spirit stage. This stage was a line of demarcation in demonic magic. Only when the baby demon was truly formed would a practitioner really counted as having become a demon. Therefore this was the most dangerous and risky moment. He kept this position as the magical yuan within Han Sha-Oh's body furiously flowed into the baby demon. The baby demon had originally only been the size of a thumb. As it continued to absorb Han Sha-Oh's magical yuan and blood essence, it slowly grew bigger and even sparkled with a faint halo. He experienced this for 7 straight days as the baby demon grew to the size of a fist. As Han Sha-Oh's magical yuan ran dry and he grew a bit dizzy, his body trembled as he suddenly fell from the large tree in a moment of weakness. Crying out with pain just as Han Sha-Oh was panicking, he suddenly sensed that the baby demon that had been continually absorbing blood essence and magical yuan seemed to suddenly form a mysterious connection with him. The magical yuan that had been continuously taken in by the baby demon suddenly surged back into his limbs and bones with the force of an exploding volcano. The magical yuan seemed to have fundamentally changed due to its association with the baby demon, and Han Sha-Oh himself seemed to feel that he'd been reborn. A thought striking him, he activated the mystical mystical glacial spellfire, and a red and purple flame roared to life after magical yuan was infused. It felt like he was holding two lamps in his hands, appearing all the more wondrous and magical. Waving his left and right hand around, the red and purple balls of flame suddenly flew out, landing on two different small trees. One of them was charred to cinders and gave off thick smoke, while the other instantly froze and multiple branches fell down with sharp cracks. Now in the true demon realm, Han Sha-O could adeptly control the mystical glacial spellfire. He could form the purple and red spellfire in the palms of his hands and cast them from his hands as an attack. This was the wondrous effect after his magical yuan had transformed. The demon slayer edge flew out from thin air, howling in a way that would possess souls and steal spirits. The surrounding trees and hills all broke apart or exploded as the demon slayer edge pierced through them. When the demon slayer edge had circled the premises in its flight and returned to his hand, the surroundings were devastated, as if a great battle had taken place. Now he could finally refine the unit demons that were a level even higher than the original demons. With the effect from the baby demon, Han Sha-O would be able to truly fly through the air after he practiced the art of the mnemonic ninth heavens as listed in the magical tome. Traveling thousands of li in a day would be a piece of cake. When he had previously faced off against Clark, Han Sha-O had been extremely passive throughout the entire encounter. However, now that he'd reached the true demon stage, Han Sha-O was confident that he could fight with Clark on equal footing. Were he to encounter Clark again, he wouldn't just duck and weave like he had last time. As Han Sha-O practiced the art of the mnemonic ninth heavens and made his way further into the southern part of the dark forest, he finally appeared outside the forest troll residence after 2 days. Casting a glance in the distance, Han Sha-O saw traces of battle outside the forest troll's village. Some large trees had been toppled as fired arrows, and some broken weapons indicated that the forest trolls must have experienced a battle. It went without thinking that the battle between the forest trolls and elves had already started. Han Sha-O surveilled the surroundings but didn't find traces of the elves. He didn't know whether or not the two sides had finished their battle. Summoning the little skeleton, Han Sha-O made his way slowly towards the village where the forest trolls lived. Several forest trolls walked out in full battle gear when they reached the outskirts. When the forest trolls saw Han Sha-O and the little skeleton, they all cheered in unison and cried out "Datara!", welcoming Han Sha-O and the little skeleton into the village with great fanfare. When he walked over, Han Sha-O saw that the forest trolls around them were all holding weapons ready to fight at a moment's notice. Even the forest troll women and elders in the distance were holding weapons as they prepared food. When he paid attention, he noticed that the numbers of forest trolls within the village were more than the amount that had been present when he left last time. He made a rough estimation and determined that there were at least 800 adult forest trolls that could wage war. That was 300 more than the amount that had been present when Han Sha-O had come last time. However, it was obvious that the forest troll didn't have enough weapons and equipment to use. Some of the forest trolls in the back were holding only crude clubs or even rocks, with some metallic weapons spotted with rust dotting the crowd. Some were even starting to munch on tree bark and weeds. It looks like they were also short on rations.